Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to have a brief discussion about the macronutrients that we have in our day to day intake. So, basically, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. The basic message I want to share today is that when we talk about improving our overall nutritional status in terms of macronutrients or our general source of calories, it's a pretty simple direction we need to take. For most of us with our modern diets, the basic direction is to reduce carbohydrates and increase fats and proteins. It's as simple as that. There has been some misdirection and confusion over the last few decades in terms of the role of fats, and that basically having a very low fat diet is important to health, and therefore, if you're not eating a lot of fat, you're going to be healthy. And that's kind of not true. Fats are extremely important for our overall health and nutritional status. There's a reason we call it essential fatty acids, because fatty acids are absolutely essential to our health. You think of some of the most important aspects of our physical health. For one, hormones. Hormones drive a lot of biochemical reactions. Hormones are made from fat. Without fat, it's more difficult for the body to make hormones. If you think about our cells themselves, the very cell walls, the very thing that makes a cell in our body integrous and in good health is a proper cell wall. And a cell wall is made of fat, of fatty acids. So fats are very important for overall health. Now, when we talk about fats, there are good fats and bad fats. So when we talk about avoiding junk food like poutine, don't get me wrong, I love poutine, or junk food and chips and things like that. Number one, it's just good old fashioned too many calories, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's really the trans fats and that, these kind of fats that have natural preservatives in it. That's the kind of fats that your body doesn't actually know what to do with. Okay, so it can either store it or it actually can cause inflammation because your body's trying to reject it. Your own immune system is trying to attack the thing that you put into your body because it doesn't recognize it as something useful for the body. So yes, junk food fats, I'm not talking about that because those are generally not naturally occurring fats, and your body doesn't know what to do with them to make proper use of them. But other fats that have been demonized, in my view, fats from eggs, animal fats, butter, I think those are fine. Those are totally fine. Naturally occurring fats are, for the most part, quite good. So I'm going to just list out a bunch of fats that I think are fine. Butter's fine. Animal fats, eggs, virgin coconut oil, olive oil, all very good sorts of fats. Fats from raw nuts like almonds, raw almonds. The fats don't quite have the same integrity once they've been cooked, but raw nuts, raw almonds have good source of raw walnuts, excellent source of fats. Okay, virgin coconut oil has had its controversies, but I think it's pretty clear that virgin coconut oil, the cold pressed, non-chemical processed, this cold pressed virgin coconut oil, very good source of fats for your body. And also when you cook with it, it's resistant to heat, and so it'll maintain its molecular structure pretty well, even in pretty high heat. So olive oil also is cold pressed. So things that aren't processed very much. So like virgin olive oil, virgin coconut oil, again, animal fats, eggs, all sorts of animal sources, but other vegetable sources, avocado fats and avocados, those are all good fats. Okay. So having a good amount of intake of fats in our system, essential to giving your body what it needs to have good cell structure and good hormone production and all the things we need to be healthy. I don't think canola oil is very good for us. Okay. I don't like margarine. I think your body pretty much rejects it. And Trans fats, which again are highly part of the fats that are in most processed foods and junk foods. Okay, trans fats, yes, those aren't good. Not because they're fats in themselves, but because your body doesn't know what to do with them and literally rejects them. Whenever you put something in your body that's kind of rejected, you create an inflammatory response. Inflammation is basically your immune system attacking itself to clear out the bad stuff. Okay, when you hurt your knee or you roll your ankle, you have inflammation in your ankle because it's trying to pull out all the damaged tissue out of your system. Okay, you have an inflammatory response. It's an immune response. So when we give stuff in our body that the body doesn't know what to do with, it has an immune response, an inflammatory response. Trans fats, your body doesn't know what to do with. Now, again, everything we say here in this podcast is to be taken with a grain of salt. I do like some chips sometimes. I do like a poutine from time to time. Okay, so I'm not trying to, never have poutine, everybody. Never. Okay, we got to have some fun in life. Okay, I get it. But in terms of a regular nutritional source, trans fats aren't the best. In fact, they're just not good for you. Okay, protein. A lot of people out there, a lot of people who are nutritional scientists are sort of raising the alarm a little bit that there is not enough protein in people's diets, that they're not meeting their nutritional needs. Okay, most labels you can protein count pretty easily. Like for example, one egg has 8 grams of protein. You can kind of estimate how much protein's in a steak and things like that. So it's not really hard to get a good idea of how much protein you're taking once you pay attention. But at minimum, people should be getting at least 1 gram per kilogram of protein per day. And that's, if you're a big guy, you weigh 220 pounds, that's 100 grams of protein a day. That's not that easy to hit if you're not used to it and your diet is mostly carbohydrates. So the difficulty with carbohydrates is not that carbohydrates are bad, it's that there's just too much of them. Okay, so you look at many of sources of our calories in a day: rice, pasta, bread, potatoes. Those are okay, there's nothing wrong with them, but just the amounts can become overwhelming for the system. So the irony, so sometimes when people talk about I want to lose weight, I want to lose, let's say, fat content on my body, I want to have I want to lose weight and get a little more slim or something like that. It's like the intuition would say, well, if I cut out the fat out of my diet, I'm gonna lose fat. But it doesn't really work that way. The difficulty is the carbohydrates. So a couple things, your body doesn't like to have its insulin spike too much. So when you give a ton of carbohydrates all at once, particularly simple ones, simple carbohydrates, or like, let's say, white flour type stuff. So your body's has a huge influx of carbohydrates. Okay, so lots of glucose in the system. So the body needs to process that glucose. So it first of all, it sends it to the liver to process and convert into glycogen. It spikes the insulin to start trying to push that glucose into the cells where it belongs. So you have a spike of sugar and you have your liver working extra hard to process that and convert all the extra glucose that you can't process into glycogen. And when it has too much, which often happens with a large amount of carbohydrates, it will begin to convert some of this into fat. And it will tell the body's natural fat burning mechanism to stop. Okay. It's like, I don't have enough energy right now to burn fat because I have too much carbohydrates to burn. Okay. So when people talk about cholesterol or high cholesterol levels or improper cholesterol, like not enough of the good cholesterol, too much of the bad cholesterol, usually that's more driven by too much carbohydrates, not too many fats. In fact, when you start to lower the carbohydrate content of your food and increase the fat content of your food, you're teaching the body how to burn fat properly, and therefore it can start to burn up its own reserves of fat. So overall, the main source of our calories in general are carbohydrates. So when you cut back carbohydrates, you naturally cut back on your overall calorie intake, and creating a calorie deficit from time to time is important. For overall health, there's a lot of benefits of just being hungry sometimes and having a calorie deficit. If we want to lose weight, then calorie deficits are part of the solution overall. There's ways to have a bit of a calorie deficit without feeling hungry all the time, and that usually involves proteins and fats, more proteins and fats. So I don't want to make it too specific today. It's just a general principle that if we want to really optimize, I'm not trying to say no carbohydrates, okay? But we want to move the needle a little bit in the direction of more fat intake, more protein intake, and less carbohydrate intake in terms of supporting our overall health. There are exceptions to this, obviously. Like, there's some articles that come out, I think, on some very high elite athletes. Michael Phelps, for example, the elite swimmer with all the records. I mean, that guy eats something like 6,000 calories a day minimum. Lots of those are carbohydrates, but his metabolism is just and energy consumption is just off the charts that he needs an exceptional kind of diet. But I'm talking about for most of us with our sort of regular day-to-day lives, increasing fat, number one, is good for your biochemistry, good for hormone production, good for your cells. We need a lot of proteins as well to maintain our muscle mass, which is important throughout the lifespan. And by reducing the carbohydrates, the simple now again, not being extreme, fruits and veggies and things like that, those kinds of carbs are fine. But reducing sort of the flat, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, just toning that down a little bit, kind of reduces the insulin spikes, and can help your body understand, how to burn fats more properly. So we want to reduce carbs. I'll just give one story of a patient I had. Not to say we should do this, but just to give an example that I've saw it with my own eyes. It was a gentleman, not a very healthy gentleman, to be honest, quite overweight, very bad cholesterol levels, and was diabetic with a what we call hemoglobin A1C, which is just an average of how many of your hemoglobin molecules have a sugar molecule attached to it. The average person should have 5%. Diabetics have over 7%. Just technical stuff, but it's a measure that we use in clinical practice to determine how well somebody is managing their diabetes. And so his sugar was quite elevated, not terribly, but pretty high. And he decided to do the ketogenic thing. Again, I am not here to promote ketogenic diet. I only tried once for 2 months. It's pretty extreme. It's just to say that higher fat intake is probably a good thing. But just to give an example for this gentleman. So he told me, I'm going to go on ketogenic diet. And he went for it. Okay. He went hardcore and unfortunately never sustained it long term, which is part of the problem with ketogenic diet. But he did do it very, very, he stuck with it very methodically and was very true, faithful to the diet for 4 months. And so I saw with my own eyes, we did his blood work before he started and we did his blood work after he started. So he was literally eating pretty much almost no carbohydrates and a lot of fat in his diet and some protein. And after the 4 months, during that time, he was starting to have low sugars. So we had to lower his diabetic medication during that time. And within 4 months, we repeated his blood work. His cholesterol had significantly improved. So his cholesterol level in the midst of a very high fat diet had gotten a lot better. And his sugar levels had pretty much returned to non-diabetic levels while we had decreased his medications. So again, it's not really a practical recommendation I'm saying here. It's just to give the theoretical knowledge behind these ideas that high-fat diets, provided it's the proper fats, are generally very good for you. And when we eat more fats and more proteins, we're usually a bit less hungry, less likely more carbs. When we have our insulin level kind of smooth over, generally good for health overall. And so overall, that's the general direction of our macros. More fats, more proteins, less carbohydrates is the general direction we want to consider if we're looking to make some modifications in terms of our diet. Hope you have a good day, folks. We'll continue the discussion next time.